Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Game series, and this is certainly a cracker. This is Stockfish against Minic TCEC Season 22 Swiss 3. So this is one of those games that, if you ask me, Matthew, would you be able to play like that? I'd really have to look a little bit dubious and not really be able to give a good answer to that. I mean, a lot of what Stockfish does is very familiar. You could certainly guess at what Stockfish is doing, but the justification of a lot of its moves is extremely deep. Some quite difficult to spot tactics, you know, even to think of them in the position or even think that they could possibly be good for white. So, you know, this is really the very highest level of play, but it's a great game. So I think there's lots and lots to enjoy. So how did we reach this position? Well, it started off with d4, knight f6, c4, c5. We get a modern Benoni. Knight f3, takes, and now this unusual move g6. It's one of those moves that's sometimes tried. I faced it not so long ago against Ivan Sokolov. But it's one of those moves that it gives white additional possibilities, very dangerous possibilities to play d5 to d6. But I'm not really sure what that move order gives black in terms of extra possibilities. I sort of think in the end black has to go d6 and hasn't really gained anything at all. There's no sense of being able to confuse white or get him out of his favourite lines. It's one of the more useless move orders in the in chess theory. Well, what Stockfish did, and also what Minic did when Minic was white, is to play the move d6. And yeah, this is an extremely powerful idea. Now this d6 pawn is actually more or less invulnerable. The key thing is that after queen to b6, there's this amazingly strong idea e4. And what are the ideas? Well, I mean, if you play bishop takes d6, this was actually the main move of all my engines, then simply e5 wins a piece. Okay, you know, my engines were sacrificing with takes and castles and trying to get some sort of compensation, but yeah, I mean, it's just a piece at the end of the day. The other idea is that after e4, knight takes e4, there's an absolutely venomous trick, queen d5. And well, you're threatening queen takes e4, and if you go knight d6, then queen e5 check picks up the rook. It's that simple. So queen b6 is actually yeah, already not working. And I mean, e4 is super strong, but even knight c3, bishop takes d6, e4 is very, very strong as well. Simply because, you know, all these pieces are misplaced. There's weak dark squares and great control of the center, and this extra pawn on d7 is not helping at all. But so what Minic did was to play bishop g7, and this is by far the best. Knight c3, castles, and e4. Maybe a good you know, place to stop here and just to try and think, you know, what did this move d5 to d6 achieve? You know, when people talk about a move like d6, they often talk about cutting the black position in half. But you might ask yourself, well, what does that mean exactly? I mean, okay, this pawn on d6 does block in the bishop on c8. It prevents d6 developing this bishop. But on the other hand, you know, black can play b6 and bishop b7. You know, playing d6 prevents d6 and knight bd7. But on the other hand, when you've played d6, the black knight can go to c6. So in terms of stopping the minor pieces from developing, it's not really that, you know, doing that much more than a pawn on d5. I think the key thing about cutting the black position in half, it's to do with restricting the squares available to the black queen. This pawn on d6 covers e7 and c7, and both of those squares are the most natural and logical squares for moving the queen off the back rank, connecting the two black rooks, and allowing them to, you know, take a full part in development. And without this spot for the queen, yeah, very hard to get the queen off the back rank, very hard to get these rooks into play. So actually, what we're cutting in half, it's nothing to do with the minor pieces really, it's all to do with the major pieces. Now, of course, you know, apart from those advantages, well, this pawn gives some great outposts on c7 and e7 for white pieces, and we're going to see that really beautifully exploited by Stockfish in this game. And of course, you know, having played d6, it makes it harder for black to hold back e4 to e5, which can be pretty disruptive, really. I mean, this knight on f6 has to find a spot. So, those are really the big advantages to the white position there after d6. So Minic played rook e8. In the reverse game, actually what Stockfish did, that was something that you'd expect more from this system. It was played knight c6, bishop d3, and then b5. And yeah, I mean, this is more what I would expect. If you're going to exploit the fact that you've avoided d6, then you should be doing this, hyperactive sort of stuff. It's not really that great, but Stockfish managed to survive somehow. Also in some of my slightly rapid time control games that I played between Stockfish and Komodo Dragon. So for example, knight takes b5, rook b8, knight c3, rook e8. I mean, black's just given up a pawn, got some, managed to get the major pieces active. You see also giving the queen an exit square there. So you can really see that this move b5, this pawn sacrifice, really addresses the, yeah, black's dynamic problems. And yeah, rook e8, castles, bishop b7. And yeah, there were some fascinating games. I mean, Minic played bishop g5, and somehow Stockfish managed to survive in this position with g5 coming in, pressure against e4, some pressure also against the bishop on d3. And yeah, there was a great game of Dragon against Stockfish on my hardware. Dragon went h3, knight d4, knight h5, king h8, rook b1, f5, and yeah, I mean, this is really what you want from it, right? And after ef5, Stockfish uncorked bishop f3, which is one of the more amazing lines, takes, and well, Stockfish was coming in with queen h4, rook g8. I mean, massive compensation in actual fact. Ended in a draw, of course. These sort of things always do when such strong engines are playing. But it was amazing, right? And that's really what you could imagine, might be the best way to play this sort of system. But Minic played rook e8, which is very, very sensible. But yeah, maybe just a slightly slower approach, and yeah, probably not as good as what Stockfish did as black. Bishop d3, b6, castles, bishop b7, and now h3. H3, what a move. Yeah, what is that move doing? It's, I mean, it's useful in many ways. It's stopping a knight coming to g4, which means if the knight can't move from f6, then the queen can't possibly use the f6 square, as an exit point. h3 is also preventing knight g4, makes e5 much more likely. So, very, very reasonable move. It's just the move order always seems strange to me. I mean, I would have played rook e1 simply, first of all, and tried to do without this sort of half move like h3. But the engine just, calculates further and just says, well, h3 is necessary, so I'll do it immediately. If you make the engines play rook e1, then after knight c6, they're playing h3 after. So, really integral part of the plan for them. But just, yeah, always surprises me when a half move like that is played before a full move like rook e1 that you're going to want to play. Whereas h3 you might be able to do without. You never know. But anyway, h3 played, knight c6, rook e1, and here black has to find a way to activate its major pieces. If black doesn't get moving pretty quickly, white's going to play bishop g5, going to play e5, and black's going to get completely squashed. And I really liked what Minic did in this position. I thought it was really, really creative. It was knight d4 is the first move. So that's actually dissuading white from playing e4 to e5 because we can take on f3 in check and double up the white f pawns. Yeah, a good move. Also exploiting drawback to d6. Knight has access to the d4 outpost. So all pretty good. Bishop g5 from white, completing the development. You forget about mundane things like that sometimes, but completing development is always good, of course. And also, well, making a threat of e5 here because, well, you can double up my f-pawns, but then I'm just winning a piece. So h6 played, bishop h4, and now now that we've got this bishop out of the way, we play bishop c6. So, yeah, I mean, there are plenty of interesting lines here, but the move that Stockfish played really shocked me. One of the problems is that you can't play e5 yet because I'll go bishop f3, And after gf, for example, g5, you can't actually take my knight on f6. Takes on here, I've got rook e1, and then I've got knight takes f3 check. So you already see, the black's pressure here, counterplay against the kingside light squares is already paying some dividends. And what is the idea of this move, bishop c6? It's actually a very clever move. I mean, first of all, if white ever takes on d4 and tries to go knight b5 to go knight c7 after, we can take it. This bishop on c6 is also supporting b6 to b5, gaining queenside space. And what it's also doing, it's freed b7, which means that the black queen can come to b8, attacking d6 along the way, and then b7, and reinforce this pressure against the e4 pawn and along the long diagonal. I mean, to be honest, if black gets in queen b7, you can start thinking then about maybe doubling the rooks on the e-file. Black gets really organized. I mean, all of the pieces are really pointing towards the center there. So, white, I think what I'm saying with that is that, white needs to keep on going. I mean, this move d6 was very principled and gains a number of advantages. But, yeah, you need to keep on going. Once you've done that, you can't just stop. So knight h2 was played by Stockfish, and this is a really lovely move. Yeah, I mean, if Alekin was playing white, he would claim that, of course, he saw this idea when he played h3, and who knows, probably Stockfish did. What's the idea of knight h2? Well, we're getting out of this attack of the knight and bishop on f3. So actually, e5 really is a big threat now because, yeah, we can't double up the f pawns. Also, of course, this knight is ready to come out to g4 and attack the knight on f6 and the pawn on h6. So a very, very nice move indeed. The other nice thing is that if black plays g5, I go bishop g3, then we've no longer got knight h5 because the queen is covering it. So one of those beautiful multi-purpose ideas. But now we really get a huge clash of influence, really, because, well, as you can see, black is really fighting for the light squares, the squares around these pawns, and white's fighting for the dark squares. And this just comes to, this just now clashes. Queen b8. Hitting the d6 pawn, e5 played, knight h5. And, well, the knight is pushed to the rim, but it's coming round to f4. It's going to be attacking g2, h3, together with the bishop, and also attacking the knight on d3. There's a lot of pressure on those kingside light squares. What we're also threatening, the pawn on e5 is hanging, so bishop takes e5, or rook takes e5 is played. So bishop e7 is played, white exploiting that outpost on e7, and what does it do? Well, of course it blocks the attack on the e5 pawn, but the key thing is it's really all about making these major pieces passive, because with this bishop on e7 we're plugging the only half open file, and that just means that these two rooks are not going to get passive in the short term, and the black queen is struggling to get active as well. So again, that's a very big move from white, and of course this bishop on e7, it's blocking, but I mean it's also attacking the f6 square. So we could get some sort of combination with knight g4 to f6, also knight e4 to f6 as well. So there are definitely threats there on the king side. But okay, black's not lost yet. Knight f4. In we go, hitting g2, and this is, one. I thought this was a very nice thing because, I was a little bit unsure in the position about, how dramatic does white need to be? Does white need to keep on going, or can white just say, okay, I've achieved my goals now, I can just consolidate? And in this position, I was sort of thinking of bishop f1, just defend g2. Just claim that these pieces are a bit loose, that you'll be able to chase them back, and we'll have also got ideas like knight g4 to f6, but somehow Stockfish is saying minus 0.83 here, thinks black is just better, and just keeps on going really. Bishop d3, h5, bishop takes g2, we've got queen takes g2, we just take, and then we've got knight f4 check, forking a king on g2 and a bishop on d3, bishop f6, b5, knight e4, c4, bishop b1 takes, queen b6, all sorts of sharp stuff, but it's clear that black's really fighting for advantage here. Certainly his position tremendously unclear. So yeah, I mean, it's not a position where you can rest still, and I think that's one of the first main big difficulties about a move like d6 on move 6. That, you know, when you do it, actually, you're asking incredible energy and dynamism for yourself for the next 20-25 moves, and not always easy for a human there. But what Stockfish does, Stockfish of course keeps on going and plays this move bishop e4. It's the most active way to cover the light squares. Also going to exchange off the light square bishops. What it is of course doing is it's sacrificing this e5 pawn. Bishop e5 takes, knight takes. And now there's a move that I definitely understand, but looking at what the situation that you get after, if I was able to calculate, you know, the next 3 or 4 moves carefully, then I would never ever choose this continuation. Indeed, I'd be thinking that white was more in swindling mode rather than a +3 evaluation, which Stockfish has. I mean, Stockfish played the move rook takes e5. Which is, you know, I mean, completely understandable, right? I mean, we've got a dark squared bishop and some weak dark squares. You know, get rid of the dark square bishop. How often have we seen engine exchange sacrifices? However, the follow-up is a little bit weird. You know, from my point of view, I would have played a move that actually Dragon also played, which is to play knight g4. So attacking the bishop on e5. The bishop goes back to g7 and then queen d2, and this looks quite natural to me. Hitting the knight on f4, knight's looking at all these squares, and black's still under quite big pressure after takes h5 and then rook e1. That would seem a very natural continuation to me. The engines were giving it plus 1.2, but actually Stockfish was managed to draw this in the end. So yeah, obviously it's not the very best move, but this would be a very human move indeed. There's one little trick that I should probably point out as well, that knight d5 maybe looks kind of reasonable. You know, let's just bring our knight into play this way. But here we could go takes, bishop h2, king takes h2, rook takes e7. And after takes, ooh, there's a pin on the pawn on d6 there. So black actually wins the piece. Back to Stockfish's rook takes e5, knight takes e5, knight g4. That's not an obvious follow-up, to be honest, because I'm sacrificing the exchange and then offering the exchange of pieces. And there's something else to it as well, because if black played knight g4, that wasn't the move that Minic played. Minic played queen b7, threatening mate on g2, which is also very reasonable. But if you were to take, then actually there's no threat of queen takes f4 here. Black plays b5, this was my engine games, because if queen f4, there's rook takes e7, curses, and we've got this pin again. But, well, not for the first time. You notice how much time Stockfish, and also Dragon as well, in my engine games, feel that they've got to play this position. So Stockfish against Dragon, for example, just played rook e1, b4, knight e4, exchanging a pawn down, no worries. Knight d5, queen f3, queen b5, queen g3, little shimmy there, looking to play something like queen e5. And yeah, essentially, you know, Stockfish just thinks that black cannot deal with these threats in the long term. We're just going to get this knight away. It's not a stable knight. It doesn't have any outpost to support it. And we're going to get rid of this knight, and then eventually this knight will come into f6, and white will simply be winning. I mean, these things are really difficult, you know, to assess. I mean, and the problem is it's not just one variation. It's so many variations are like this, where you're just saying, but I'm exchanging a pawn down. I know I've got some play, but, you know, like I can't create any threats immediately. You know, surely black's got time to deal with this. And it turns out, no, you don't have time to deal with it. But often the reasons for that are quite complicated. So knight g4 was not what Minic played. It played queen b7, threatening mate on g2. And here, yeah, knight f6 check was played, king g7, and knight ce4. And this is quite an extraordinary position. I mean, you know, white, you know, has got a great grip on a complex of dark squares. d6, e7, f6. Very, very thematic considering what white did on move 6 with d6. And, you know, we're threatening, we've got the possibility of getting an exchange back with knight takes c8. And, you know, this entrenched bishop on e7. Yeah, I coined this term entrenched pieces in my new book, The Silicon Road for Chess Improvement. And, well, that seems pretty appropriate for this bishop. Yeah, I mean, this, you know, make sure that black's rook will always remain passive. So, I mean, that's really, really good. You know, the only thing, though, is that, you know, despite all this, you know, dark square control, it's kind of pointed more towards the center. And, well, black with some space for the king, pawn h6 covering the g5 square, you know, it doesn't feel like the black king's under direct threat. And what I really object to in this position, and I think this is something that would definitely dissuade me very, very strongly from going for this setup as white ever, is the fact that my knight on e4 is pinned by the queen on g2. That means that my attacking pieces are restricted by black's pieces. And yeah, my intuitive feeling about that is, oh no, never go into that sort of situation. I mean, I know that I can you know, neutralize that, but that's going to take me a few moves before I do it. And then, yeah, you know, a few moves, surely black can do something. You know, the one thing about the position is that, you know, why is white unable to really get close, for example, with the queen to the black king? And that's these knights, you know, knight on e5, knight on f4. For example, I'd like to bring my queen to c3. That would be a great square. But then knight e2 check will fork my king on g1 and my queen on c3. And it's, you know, very, very hard, or it takes a lot of moves to push those knights back. But if you do manage to push those knights back, then black is definitely going to be in a lot of trouble. And of course, these knights are defending themselves tactically very often, just like with that knight e2 check trick. But they don't have any outposts. Again, they're floating pieces, another term I coined in The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement. Actually, the antithesis of a bishop on e7, which is completely entrenched and supported. And yeah, and you know, that's the basic problem for black. Those pieces are floating, they're loose, they can be chased away. It's just the sheer amount of time that white has to spend to do it that really makes me nervous. But actually, you know, a Stockfish shows so many subtle tactical ideas that that white has, you know, are actually making this all this possible. But intuitively, I'd be extremely nervous. Very, very suspicious of playing a setup with an attacking piece that's pinned and can't move. So what sort of ideas do we have here? I mean, first of all, if we sort of gave white a move, what would white do? I mean, white's move simply would be to play queen d2, hitting the knight on f4, and after a move like g5, we play rook e1. Those are the next two moves. So no immediate threats yet either. But what's coming next? We've covered the check on the e2 square, so queen c3 is coming. And if that knight has to move, we've got all sorts of discovered attacks. So that is basically what white is going for now. So yeah, black needs to find a response to that. I mean, knight c6 was a very obvious thing. And then again, this is another one of those things that's rather difficult to assess. So queen d2 was my first idea, hitting that knight on f4. Knight takes c7. Black's just trying to get rid of that bishop, get the pieces active. This was my original hope, here, and check. But after king g8, then yeah, this isn't really leading anywhere for white. I'm kind of threatened with knight e2 check, queen e4, and queen g2 if the knight moves away. And after here, I just don't have a discovered check that will get me anywhere. And I've still got to deal with these two threats. So yeah, the best that white has got is this, just a draw by perpetual. So I spent a lot of time without a computer looking at this line. So d takes c7, rook e7, queen takes f4. And yeah, again, I wasn't really sure about this position. I mean, actually, that's partly due to the fact that that engines have often bailed out to rook versus knight, or two rooks, or rook versus two knights positions. Just using the fact that the knights are short leg pieces, if they don't have good outposts, then often you can survive with just a couple of pawns for the piece. And here, I mean, black's got a rook and two pawns for two knights. And the question is, I mean, are these dangerous, or are they just going to get chased back? Actually, they're dangerous, but they're way more dangerous than I could prove. I mean, my first idea was to play d5 for black. Now, knight takes d5 looks clever, but because after queen d5 we've got queen f6 check, and this is rather annoying. King f8, I go queen h8 checkmate, and obviously king g8, queen e7, I defend the knight on e4. The problem was that that I couldn't really get my head around was, what if black plays rook e6? I mean, fine, there's only one pawn, rook and pawn for the two knights, but I didn't really see any way that white could, that white could put this away. And, well, if you play a move like knight c3 and I go rook e8, I mean, of course, white's going to be better here. The two minor pieces, the knights are strong, and there are some threats against the king, but I don't know, is this a win for white? I'm not very sure about it. But yeah, the thing that my engine saw was this beautiful idea, which is actually you go knight d6, you don't take that pawn, and after queen c6 you've got this move, knight g4, and this is so strong. We're just threatening queen f6 or queen h6 check. And, the kingside's defenseless. When you see it, then you sort of say, yeah, of course, kingside defenseless, no black minor pieces to defend. So obviously this is going to be winning for white. But I just find it really hard to visualize. I mean, black offers a pawn, gives it away. You don't take it, and then you retreat a knight from an attacking square. But yeah, just to reposition yourself to get closer to the black king. It's really, very hard to spot, and I didn't spot it, when I was analysing by myself without an engine. Queen c6, oops, pardon me, queen c6 in this position. This one I did see. Knight d6 looked amazingly hard to deal with. I mean, if you go rook e6, then I've got this move knight e8 check, which is very, very powerful. Check, and knight takes e8. And the amazing thing about it is that it's very hard for black to find another move. I mean, I've got all sorts of ideas if black doesn't do anything, like knight g4, for example. But if you played something like rook f8 just to protect yourself, then I've got this gorgeous idea, knight h5 check. And after takes, I go knight f5 check. And if king f6, I was looking at all sorts of complicated wins, but knight d4 check just picks up the queen with a win. It's even nicer if you go king h8, I go knight h5 check still, takes, knight f5 check, king f8, knight e7, and after king e7 it's an oops, because I'm forking the king on e7 and the rook on h8. Again, that one was, I was able to work that one out by myself, but yeah, I mean, I would be just incredibly nervous during the game about, is this really working in all lines, or am I just, missing one clever idea? The other thing that I also spotted, I couldn't see a way to get my knight trap, so I assumed this would be good, is after rook e6 immediately, we play knight d6. So queen c6, knight e8 check transposes to our previous line. And after rook f6, I can actually just take and go knight b7. That knight looks a little trapped, but you can't trap it. I mean, I'm getting out to d6, and if you go king e7, then I go rook e1 check and chase you away. The only thing I was wondering about was, rook e8, knight d6, rook e2, b3, and then something like rook b2. I mean, I was assessing this just as a, clear advantage for white. The technical task didn't look so easy to me, but it was +4 for the engine, so just trivial, absolutely trivial. So okay, fair enough. And yeah, both Dragon and Stockfish, of course, won this with consummate ease. But yeah, be a little bit nervous in a human game. I think that the idea that you have to spot actually is this one, that you can go knight d2. And actually you're going to force back the rook, because if I try and keep my rook on the 7th, then it gets trapped. This is the key point, basically. The rook isn't stable on the 7th rank, and then if you get the rook back, then yeah, okay, you can start offering exchange of rooks and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, again, it's well, if you could extend your search, to encompass this, then that's great. But you can see how many lines it is. It's starting to get, for a practical game, starting to get very, very tricky to do that, to put it incredibly mildly. So there are other lines as well, plenty of other lines, that were, again, quite beautiful. Maybe just one last one to show. After knight c4, g5 was another one of my ideas, just taking some control of dark squares and preparing to yeah, somehow try and get some sort of outpost with knight fg6. But actually, I don't know, I should have guessed that this one was good, but yeah, somehow I didn't quite get it there. Knight takes c7 is not so good. G takes f4 was what I really wanted to do. Gf4, even queen h5 is possible, but knight f4, and then I love this one with just king h2. That's the idea, and you're just aiming to play queen g1 check, and then queen e3, and then rook g1. You know, and again, you know, the black pieces find it so hard to get closer to the black king, because, you know, this knight, especially this knight on f6, it's, you know, covering the d5 square, so the queen can't get in there. So the only way that the queen's going to be able to do anything is to sneak round the side. But yeah, that costs a lot of time. Well, talking about sneaking along the side, that was what Minic did. Queen a6. Yeah, I mean, abandoning this pressure against g2, so this knight on e4 is now free, but the black queen's trying to get involved with the knights just to stop white from chasing them away. And now, you know, some more really amazing moves from Stockfish, also beautifully precise. So queen e1. You know, what is my next idea here after queen e1? Well, I've got a couple. First of all, I might just go queen e3, just trying to get rid of this knight on f4. But if you go g5, for example, then I've got this lovely idea, knight g3. And what's the idea? I'm attacking the knight on e5. And if you go knight eg6, well, I can go queen c3 now, because this knight on g3 has covered this knight e2 check fork with tempo. And, well, the next thing that's coming in is knight h5 or knight takes c8, followed by queen g7. I mean, again, it's, you know, it's little ideas like that, you know, make it all possible. But yeah, just I mean, I think at some stage during a game, a human game, you know, it's just cognitive overload, really. You can't calculate all of those things precisely all of the time. And well, you could maybe do it on attacking intuition, you know, but yeah, again, not easy. You need to have very good intuition for that. So Minic played queen c4, just stopping queen c3 actually, and just yeah, getting back a little bit more into contact with the black king side. You know, the queen can come back to e6. Queen's also attacking the knight on e4. So here Stockfish cashed in and well, launched another threat there, hitting the rook on e8 and the knight on e5. And now black's going to be stretched to the maximum. Knight e2 check. So with tempo, that was one of your little things that you could do to block the e-file. And now rook a8. But, you know, yeah, black is stretched to the maximum here. I mean, all of these knights are unstable, vulnerable. And yeah, you know, black doesn't have any counterplay. Look how safe this white king is. So now rook d1 was played. And just very, very quiet, but bringing the rook into play. Sort of emphasizing the difference in activity, you know, between the rook between white's rooks and black's remaining rook. And actually, we're just threatening rook d2 just to pick up this this knight on e2. So you know, already that's a big threat. So knight c6 was played by Minic, and now queen d2. So we're simply preparing rook e1, which is again going to be rather unpleasant for this knight. And of course, this queen is pointing towards the h6 square. So ideas like knight g4 are really coming into to play now as well. Now here Minic played knight takes e7, which well, giving up material in order to break that bind. I looked at lots of different ideas, but none of them were any good really. If we go something like knight cd4, just trying to, you know, restrict white, hammer in those knights as best black can, then we just go knight g4 here, hitting h6, also threatening bishop to f6 check as well. And after g5, well, that's no barrier, just bishop takes g5 and in we go. Other possibility, knight ed4, trying to get those that knight safe. We again go knight g4, knight f5, b3, and suddenly the black queen's in a bit of trouble here. So, and if queen b4, trying to exchange off queens, we've got this lovely little idea, check, and bishop c3. So if the queen retreats, we've got, well, knight h6 to start with, all sorts of ideas. If the queen tries and keep on inconveniencing white, then just rook e1 wins the queen. Just amazing, yeah. It's just you know, it's like magic. Just you know, just everything changes and switches, and all of a sudden the black queen is trapped. Again, you know, it's just a very wide variety of tactical ideas being used to really make this work. And, you know, a lot of them I understand once I see them, but I mean, I'll also say that a lot of them I didn't even, you know, despite spending, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes just with a board, you know, just by myself trying to understand what it was. A lot of them I didn't see, you know, I didn't even see the tactical idea that that Stockfish was using to do it. Now, obviously, I'm not an elite player, but still, you know, fairly decent analyst. So I think it, you know, that really shows you know, how complicated this is. And I don't have it with every single engine game, but this one's really you know, an extreme level really. So knight takes c7 was played, d takes c7, king f6, queen d7, and somehow, much to my amazement actually, it's just not really possible to stop this this pawn from queening. If you go queen e6, there's several lines, but this was one that really pleased me. It's queen d8, hitting the rook on a8, and the threat is to go e8 queen discovered attack, or even e8 knight actually, double check, might even be even stronger. So, you know, really very beautiful. So queen d7 was played, queen a2, check, king e7, queen a8, knight d4, b4, and in principle this should not be trivial. Again, you know, I'd be certainly in a blitz game I would be completely capable of messing this up as white, and well, in a long game it takes some precision. Black's big problem, of course, is that its king is rather loose, so yeah, that means that what always happens in those cases that you inevitably lose some pawns along the way. You're not going to be able to keep your 2 pawns compensation for the exchange there. And you see this is actually what happens. Queen e6, check, queen d7, queen b8, queen d6. Minic gives back a pawn there, and we get this rook versus knight ending. Yeah, this ending carried on for quite a while, but yeah, it was quite trivial for Stockfish. The coup de grace came in this position after knight h5, where Stockfish played takes, king d5, and it was a winning ending. King h6, king e6, f5, king f6, king h5, king g7, g5, and this very typical idea, king f6, and we come back and win all the pawns. So a beautiful performance there from Stockfish. I mean, I just can't. Well, I hope you've got some idea of how impressed I am with that play. I mean, d6 was a very nice opening move, but I think, you know, the precision and the energy that was required afterwards. Knight h2 was a great move. Bishop e4 was wonderful, and yeah, rook takes c5 again was, you know, very highest class. I mean, knight g4 was definitely the human move and definitely not bad, but yeah, rook e5 is amazing. And I mean, yeah, it's just you know, so much of this stuff where you sort of say intuitively, you know, I don't go into situations where my attacking pieces are also pinned, you know, but the Stockfish understanding how much time exactly it had, and that's all to do with you know, having a safe king, the opponent somewhat unsafe king, and the difference between entrenched pieces like these and floating pieces like these that, you know, don't have any stability to fall back on. And yeah, you know, the moves that Stockfish played, you know, very calm, very unhurried. Queen e1, and then afterwards rook d1, and then queen d2, and all the time these moves, you know, always containing some venom, but often quite unusual tactical points. You know, I mean, this move queen e1, it had the tactical point of g5, knight g3, you know, followed by queen c3. You're covering e2 with tempo, and then yeah, you know, whenever you put the queen on d2, this idea of retreating the knight from an attacking square in order to hit h6 and free f6 for a bishop or a queen, you know, again, extremely tricky. You know, it's so really wonderful play there, and yeah, I think the jewel of the Swiss so far. You know, one of the, yeah, definitely one of the best games, best engine games I've seen. So there we are. That was a long video, but I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you can maybe give it a like or subscribe to the channel to see plenty more of this wonderful engine chess analysed by me. Also maybe take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, which is full of engine analysis like this, grouped into all sorts of themes, yeah, hopefully enabling you to apply some of this stuff at least in your own games, and also plenty of tips about working and training with engines. And but otherwise, thanks very much for watching this video, and hopefully see you at the next one.